So what you are not, you cannot transfer. What you are not, you cannot give. And in order to give us a very clear insight as to the demands of this very emphasis I'm bringing, we made us understand that this business is a business of spirits. Everything you are doing is actually giving expression to the things you are trafficking from a pool of spirit beings. You may have a thought and you think your mind is working. If God helps you and you see on the other plane, you will discover that thing you call a thought was a whisperer. It was a being whispering into your senses. And what you are picking is actually what a spirit wants to give expression to. You find yourself lying at home, and then suddenly you felt like going on Facebook. You think it's because you like Facebook. What you don't know is that a spirit has already activated a meeting between you and somebody. So the time of that meeting has come. It just came to awaken you. And when you go there, you discover you find a pretty damsel that has your time. And then all of a sudden you begin to gist. And then in that conversation, you have a meeting in 1 week time. And then in 1 week time, you are traveling to meet somebody somewhere. You did not know that all of those things, they had written that script in the spirit realm. The two of you are just playing it in time. That was why I took enormous time yesterday to show you how spiritual technologies are built, how cities are designed in the spiritual. Because if you don't know, you may think your life is doing what you want to do. Well, I feel like doing this. Why would I not do it? Is it not my life? So you ask somebody, why are you behaving like this? He says, is it not my life? It's a sign that you don't have understanding. Jesus says, Simon, Simon, Satan desires to have you, to sift you like wheat. He said, but I have prayed for you, that your faith faileth not. He said, when thou art recovered, strengthen thy brethren. Peter never knew that his standing was not about him alone. It was about every other person that was going to walk under the atmosphere of his anointing. Every other person that is supposed to be influenced by the scope of ordination, their destiny dependent on his standing. That was why I began to define what a place meant. You know, Balaam thought it was about doing business with Balak. So he collected money to curse the children of Israel. When it was not going to work again, they now advised Balak. They say, these people, their God is in their midst. You can't curse them. But what you can do is that cause them to walk in iniquity. If they walk in iniquity, their God will begin to fight them. Now, he did all of that because of appetite and greed for money. Balaam never understood that in the prophetic ranking, according to ordination, he was one of the first prophets that will walk in the forensic dimension of prophecy. And everybody that we ever experience that possibility of the prophetic is actually under the ambience of Balaam. That is why today, one of the greatest error of the prophetic is greed for money. And it is lust for women. The Bible said it is an error of Balaam. He grew from an error. He said it is the way of Balaam. He grew from the way of Balaam. It became the doctrine of Balaam. Today they teach it in the prophetic. Say, come on. Well, if you fall, you ask God for mercy. All of us have our problems. We have our challenges. So just come on. You are a man. It is now a doctrine. So the prophet comes and says, bring a seed. How much do you have? I don't have money. And he said, no. This altar, when you sow seed, the altar will begin to speak. It is the way of Balaam. If Balaam knew that what he was going to do will affect many generations of prophets, he would have rejected that money. But he had no understanding. So when Paul began to talk about bringing testimony to the grace of God, the first thing Paul was outlining was the dealings that he went through. What his life was subjected to before he could come to a point where he would be a witness. He had to die many times to his ambitions. He had to die many times to his desires. Because what you don't know is that God has a standard. And if you don't meet that standard, you cannot stand as a mouthpiece of God. You may be talking on earth, making noise. But when we check, you may not be striking a chord in the realms of God. Men that speak and have the backings of heaven, they are the only people that earth will number as men. Did you notice that in heaven, in the days of Paul, the church was represented in heaven as a candlestick. And Jesus said, if the church fail, he will remove the candlestick from the lampstand. So you can sit here on earth and say, we are church. You are singing every Sunday and you are 10,000. But in heaven, your candle have been removed. So that territory is full of darkness because there's no light. Did you not read in the Bible? The Bible said in the land of Zebulun, in the land of Naphtali, by the way of the sea beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentile. He said the people that sat in darkness. There were Pharisees there. They were preaching the gospel. In fact, they respected them so much. They were the doctors of the law. They had insight as to the ways of God. If the Pharisees look at you and say, "Kai, this man is accurate," the whole community will accept you as a man of God. It doesn't matter what you are doing. The way NUC accredits university, that's what the Pharisees were. So when John began his baptismal service, they came and said, "Who are you? If we don't validate you, what you are doing is not ministry waste." Meanwhile, the very territory where they dwelled, the Bible said it was covered with darkness. Because they were talking on earth, but in heaven there was no lampstand. So everything they were doing on earth could not strike a chord in eternity. That is how the lives of many of us are. Yes, you may be head of the worship team, and then because you have a good voice, you come up and, "Oh wow," people will say, "Kai, this sister," and then they are feeling some goosebumps. When you feel goosebumps, it doesn't mean God is touching you. Man is a component, a tripartite component. He has emotion in his soul. If your emotional cord are struck, you will feel it. That's why when Michael Jackson shows up, people fall under the anointing. It's the soul reaction. It doesn't necessarily mean that God is something is happening. The only way you will know that you are accurate with God is by the witness of the Spirit. And only men who are in sync with the standards of heaven can feel that movement on their inside. He said, knowing the seal of God, he said he commanded men to depart from iniquity.